Hey guys, I took a break from my paper bag project to play with my scraps. I'm using up my scraps and papers and all those things, and I've been telling you that in video after video. So I took a break and I played around with my fabric scraps. And I made these little journals. And what I did was I used fabric scraps, and I also am using up the rest of a paper pad here by K & Company. So that's the goal today, to finish using up this pad of paper and some more scraps and show you how I made them. I thought I would share with you what I did. So let me show you real quick what they look like. This is just a little book that fits in your palm of your hand just about. It's a little bit bigger than that, but... And it wraps closed with a piece of ribbon like this. And if your book gets too big for this ribbon to go around, well, it's probably too big, but you can always take this off, tie another piece of ribbon on here, and then just keep wrapping. It's, no big deal. The front has a fabric flower that I made a long time ago using one of my dies, and I just pieced together a bunch of pieces. The bow was in my scrap bin, so I kept it out and stuck it on there. All these little scraps here were in my scrap bin, and these trims and ribbons and things like that were also in my scrap bin. If you don't have scraps, take what you do have and make scraps from them. Just cut off pieces of trim and take a piece of fabric and tear it so that you have your strips, or cut them if you want to. And then you open it, and there's no finishing to the edges. The inside, is fabric also, and I left the stitching raw in the back. I did not cover it because I like the stitching to show. I just took some Aida cloth for a cross stitch that I had on a roll, and I just glued a piece in the back here for a pocket. And I stole one of the tags I made the other day. I'm gonna have to make some more of those because I need some more. And this is a little tag I made from a clothing price tag a long time ago, so that went in there. And the little strings hang over, I like that. And then I've got my papers in here. There's 3 signatures. I just tied them in the middle there. There's one signature, the second one, and then the third one. And in the back, I took another piece of that cloth and put a little strip here for a pocket and stuck one of my little Rolodex cards in there. And then I just close it back up, and then I bring my little ribbon around however many times it will go, or however many times I want to put it, and then stick this through here to kind of tie it off. Okay? And I'll show you this one real quick. Same thing, same concept. I just put a different color flower, different style, in a different location. Same thing, a bow in my scrap box that I wanted to use up. I'd made it for another project and didn't use it. These little pieces here were in my scrap box. I did not have black in my scrap box, so I did tear a strip of black. And if you want to use black ribbon, that's fine. But I recommend putting some black in here. Anytime you do something with fabric or even paper, it's probably a good idea to use black. It just sort of makes the colors pop. And there's the back. And the same thing inside. Stole another tag, so that's 2 tags gone. Okay, and then the paper's in the middle. So it's very easy, and you can make it more complicated. You can make it more detailed. You can use things like fusible webbing to keep your pieces together while you sew and all that stuff, but I didn't do any of that. I kept it really simple and fun. So I'm going to show you how I did it, and I hope you make some. They're really fun and I enjoyed it. So I'm going to do one on camera for you, then I'm going to keep going until I use up all my paper. I think I have enough to do 2 more from the paper I've got. So, alright, so let's get started. Okay, the first thing I did was I decided what paper I was going to use so that I'd know what size book I wanted to create. And I went over to my paper and I saw that I had these papers here, and I knew that I'd use some of them and I didn't have that many left, so I wanted to go ahead and use up the rest of it because I want to finish this off and throw this packaging away or use the packaging. So I decided that this was going to be about the size of my book right here. It has to be a little bit bigger to accommodate your pages, but that's okay. You just cut a little bit bigger. So what I did was I measured out a pattern piece on a piece of trash. This is the backing of one of my sticker sheets. I measured out the size of this book approximately in length and width, okay? And it's a little bit narrower than my book, which is fine because once I add all the fabrics in and everything will work out. And the paper is a little shorter than the pattern piece because the white strip has to be cut off. Okay, so what you basically got is a book cover about this size and your paper about this size. So there is no rhyme or reason to a specific measurement. You just pick the paper you want to use and make your pattern piece. Okay, that's what I did. And then I went to my closet of fabric, which I have quite a stash in there, and believe me, I have much less than I used to. I went through a long time ago and got rid of a bunch of it. I inherited all my mom's fabric, and she was a seamstress and expert seamstress at that, and I had a lot of her fabric, and I kind of dwindled it down. Anyway, I found a piece of muslin that I wanted to use. This is very lightweight. There are heavier weights of muslin. The cheaper the muslin, usually the heavier it is, but not always. But in the cases where the kind I buy, that seems to work out. But this is a little bit lighter weight, which is fine. And then I found a piece of fabric just sitting on top that I wanted to use. This is one of those country type fabrics that you would buy in the calico section of like Joann's or something. And this is probably something I've had a long time when I made dolls. And so I took those two pieces and I cut out of the muslin the size of my pattern. Okay, and then I cut out a piece of the decorative fabric. I cut it a little bigger than the pattern piece. Okay, and the reason I cut it a little bigger is because I'm going to layer these, and I just wanted a little leeway in case I made a mistake. I wanted to have a little extra room in case I made a mistake with my layering of my trims and stuff. Okay, so then what I did was I took my decorative fabric and I put the right side is the color side where all the design is and everything. The wrong side is the dull side. I put the right side down so it would be the bottom, which is going to be the inside of your book, right here. And I put the muslin piece on top, kind of centered, doesn't have to be real centered, okay? And that's my base. Now I could go a step further, and if you are uncomfortable with just sewing on top of this, you could pin this down, or you could take a product that's called Wonder Under, or there are other brand names, but it's a fusible web, and it's a webbing that you can iron to the side of your fabric and then peel off the backing and then iron another piece of fabric too, and it webs them together, fuses them together, and they will stay in place. And a lot of quilters use that. In fact, I have used that many times in some projects that I've done in years past. I just didn't feel like dragging all that out. I wanted to keep this simple, so I'm not going that route. I'm leaving my fabric loose. But if you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. There's several ways you could do this without it being wrong. And there's really no wrong way, honestly. However you do it is the right way, because it's the way you want to do it. Just do what you want to do, you know? So, the next thing I'm going to do is find all the fabric scraps that I want to use. And I'm going to turn the camera off for a minute and gather up a few just to give you an idea how to get started, and then I'm going to go to my sewing machine. I don't know if I can film at the sewing machine. The lighting over there is not as good because I don't have my big bright lights over there, although there will be some light. I'm going to use my phone to film that part because I'm not going to move this camera. It's just too much trouble. So if I can film it, I will, and then you'll get the idea of how the strips are sewn on, and then maybe fast forward through it. Okay, so let me get a few scraps to show you how I'm going to start layering this, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've pulled out a bunch of my scraps that I will probably use. Just brought a few over to show you. And I also brought a piece of fabric over to show you if you don't have strips of scraps like this, or even small pieces like this, you can take a piece of fabric that you have that might be, you know, half yard, quarter yard, whatever, and you can make your own. And all you need to do is find your selvage, and your selvage is usually, well, it is always, the edges where there's that finish that looks like it's not the same as your fabric. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but usually there's a white edge. If it's not white, it may be kind of the color of the fabric, but you can tell there's a definite place where they've finished off the fabric. And you want to cut on that end, and usually the fabric is folded in such a way that your selvage is always on the very long edge. And you want to take your scissors and you just clip right there, and you just tear, and it'll tear in an even strip. And if it doesn't come out even, it's because the fabric was cut unevenly. So once you get it stripped once, from then on it should cut evenly or strip evenly. So that's how you can get some scraps if you don't have any. Okay, what I brought over here, what I will do is I'll sit down at the sewing machine. Actually, I'll stand because I don't have a chair over there right now. I'll start off probably facing this direction. And I usually start off with one strip. This is strips that my mother actually cut or tore years ago when she was going to do a quilt. And I still have a bunch of the strips left over, so I've been using a bunch of those. And I'm trying to start off on the edge of my piece here instead of over here, because when I cut this out, I want to make sure and cut it out the size I need. But I still have my pattern piece, so if you go over, it's okay, because once you've finished, you're going to cut out from your pattern piece anyway, so it's not going to matter. But just to avoid having threads cut and everything, I kind of start off on the edge. But that's just me. You can do it however you want. I might lay down strips like this first. I'm going to take my first strip and put it down, and I'm going to sew in a squiggly line or a straight line back and forth, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. Or you can pin this down, or you can fuse it down like I explained a minute ago, and then do it all at once. But I'm going to do strips at a time. So I'll probably sew this strip down. Once it's sewed down, I'll trim off the edge, and then I'll find another strip that I want to put down. And I normally, you can do it all kinds of ways where you just hodgepodge it, but because I'm covering a white here, I just went ahead and did strips straight to cover the piece of muslin first, and then came back over with all of my extra little trims and did all my little angles and stuff. So I'll show you that in a minute. So I might put down this next strip, and then I might put down this strip here, and I'm going to sew each one individually. And pretend this one's long enough, I might put that one down. And then I'm going to cover the whole piece. And all of these will be stitched down by the time you reach the end. It doesn't matter how wide, it doesn't matter how narrow, it doesn't matter if you layer, like this piece here is wider and this one's smaller. It doesn't matter if you sew this one down and then put this one like right in the middle of it. It doesn't matter how you layer it. Okay, and once you get this covered, and I don't care about strings. I like the strings. I left the strings on a lot of my piece over there. Let's pretend this is all covered. Then you're going to continue on your sewing machine, taking little strips or taking big ones and cutting them down if you want to. And I just layer them in different places, and I start sewing them across. And I add little pieces of lace or trim. And this is a little piece of ribbon that I didn't use. I might put it in there somewhere. This is a little trashy piece that you might throw away. I'll stick it in there somewhere. So I'm going to try to show you the best I can on the sewing machine so you'll see what I'm doing. But that's the basic of how I did this. Okay? So let's go to the sewing machine and let's see if we can get any of this filmed. Okay, I've got the phone set up over here on a little tripod in front of the sewing machine. I hope that you can see enough of what I'm doing while I do it. know how to do this. This is my grandmother's machine, an old machine, so it's a little bit louder. This is my brand new baby that's, it's not brand new anymore. It's been here for a long time, but I've never used it, and I need to use that. But anyway, I'm going to start by putting my fabric down like I showed you a minute ago. I'm using black thread. You can use whatever color you like. Anything goes. I'm going to lay down this strip here on the edge. Put it under my presser foot, and you can use any kind of presser foot you want. This machine's very old, so I have a zipper foot and a flat presser foot and just a few that I would not use for this project. So you probably could use a zipper foot and it would be great, but I didn't want to try to find it. I'm just going to go with this. So just set it down and go forward a little bit, back up a little bit to kind of lock your stitch in, and you don't even really have to do that. By the time you're done with this, it won't matter. And start stitching in a crooked fashion. And if your white shows on the side a little bit, that's okay. It's not a big deal. We can trim it off. And then I'm going to turn around and keep going the other way because I want this one to be on there because it is bigger. Make sure it's on there real good. I love the sound of this machine. This was my Nana's machine, and I've used it since I was probably about 12 or 13 years old. I just refuse to give it up. So you can see, I hope, I can't see what you see because my camera's turned around. Just trim off the edge. Okay, and then I'm going to take my next strip and start another one. So you could also do decorative stitching on this if you wanted to, if you use a machine that has all the different features, which the machine next to the one I'm using actually has those, but I refuse, like I said, to give up my Nana sewing machine. I've used this since I was a little girl, made school clothes and wore them to school and made my dolls, and all the things I've ever done, I've done on this machine. This machine's probably about 65, 70 years old now. I'm not sure, but I love this machine and I'll use it until it just won't go anymore. Probably I'll be gone before it goes. This is where I start adding ribbons and lace pieces and small little pieces of things that I just want to use. So just layer them on there any way you want to. And sew them across. I was trying to figure out the exact age of this machine. I think they were made in the 50s at some point, and my Nana was very young when she went into a nursing home, and so in her 40s she was no longer able to do any sewing or anything, and that's why I wound up with this machine at a very young age, and I've used it ever since, and I've loved it ever since. So we're back over at the other camera right now, and I'm going to show you the hot mess we've got, and it's a hot mess. If you don't like this kind of thing, you don't want to do this project. I happen to love it. I love the strings. I love everything about it, but I am going to trim it up because we need it to be the size we need it. So kind of get an idea where you started, if you can. If you can't, just center it where it looks best to you. This is where I actually do pin it. These are my old grimy pins. I use these to unplug glue. My good pins are over there on the other side. And then I'm just going to pin it on each end and on the sides a couple times. And it's not because I want a perfect cut, it's just to keep it from slipping so I don't get the cut that I don't want. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be at least close to where I want it. And then I'm just going to trim all this excess off, and I would use fabric scissors. That's what I'm using right now. These scissors are off limits to anybody and everybody except me and fabric. I have scissors for different things, and I'm very picky about my scissors. My mother taught me that years and years ago. In her house, you wanted to keep your hands, you'd kept your hands off of her fabric scissors. That's just the way it was. Okay, so then you can keep all this if you want to, make a little bird nest out of it on a little ATC, but for time's sake, I'm just gonna not do that. Then I'm gonna take out my pins. You can do this for any size paper, any size book you want to make. Okay, now if you don't want all these little strings, cut them off. It doesn't matter. You can cut them off now, cut them off later. You can cut off the ones that bother you. Now if you fold this, you're going to see where everything lands. Okay, I probably will make this the front because I'll put a flower here. I love this piece here. I love this. I love the black across. I love this. You don't see it on the front but much, but up here. Anyway, so the next thing you want to do is you're going to establish where the front and back's going to be, and I'm thinking that I'm going to make this the front because I can decorate this with a flower, make it prettier, because this is not my favorite side. This is my favorite side, but I can make this one pretty with a flower. So I'm going to make this the front, and you're going to need a piece of ribbon, however long you want to make your ribbon for wrapping your book. I just start off with a really long piece and then I cut it where I want it after I'm done. But I'm going to add this to my book now while I've got the sewing machine going and the camera's over there and everything. And you decide it's going to go on the back. On mine, it goes on the back. You can put it wherever you want to. But you're going to decide whereabouts you want it. Like I have mine in the middle. And I'm just going to turn my book over. And it's going to go on the outside because I want it on the outside. Okay, so in the middle, approximately, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches in, probably about 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to take another piece of scrap, and let me bring you a little closer, and I'm going to put it on top of that to kind of cover it, and then I'm going to stitch this down over at the machine, okay? So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm just going to stitch down that piece of scrap onto the ribbon on the outside, on the back cover, and then we'll go back to the other camera. We've got our ribbon sewn on and just added another little decorative element with this little piece of scrap here. So now, and here's one that's in the way, so we'll get rid of it. So now when you close your book, this is on the back. So this is the front, that's the back, and when you wrap it closed, it'll just go around like this. Okay? We're going to leave this long for now until I know how long I want it. So we're going to leave that for a while off to the side. So the next thing you want to do is get the paper that you want to use. And this paper here I want to finish up. And I made 3 signatures with 3 pieces of paper each. And there's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So there's actually that many left in this book. We will use them up. So the first thing I want to do is take this apart so I have all the papers out. Then I can decide which order they're going to go in. Rip, 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 rip. All these white edges have to be trimmed off. So somewhere around here is a trimmer, a little trimmer. Here it is. So I have to go one at a time because this paper is a little thick and this is a small trimmer. I've got my big trimmer on the other side of the room, but I'm not going to go get it. This is just a small project, so you just cut that off. And it's not going to be perfect. Each one's not going to be perfect. This one I left a little blue on. Another one I might leave a little white on. I don't care. That's just how it is. I don't care. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff. If I worried about it, it would stress me out. And I have enough other stresses in life, real life, to worry over than whether or not the paper's straight in my project. Okay, I have all my pieces ready with the white cut off. They're fairly even. So there's a couple here that are the same, so I want to make sure and not put them together, so I'll separate those. And these are the same, and these are not. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll put these together, and then these will just turn the opposite way. So when you fold them, you'll see the opposite side. Okay, so we've got 3 signatures here, 3 sets. So what I want to do now is just fold them in half. And then I just take the end of my scissors, or you could take a bone folder if you've got a bone folder handy. Mine's somewhere stuck away. And just fold them and press them down. Fold, 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 fold. Okay, so I've got them folded in half. So there's 3 pieces here. And then I'm just going to stick them inside each other. Okay. So that's my first signature. They're not even. Big deal, right? Big deal. Who cares? If you care, you're in the wrong place, really. Okay, so I'm going to do that to all 3 signature sets, and then I'll show you what to do next. So I'm just going to fold the rest of them and press down the edges, and it's 11:18 here in the morning, and Bailey's already wanting her lunch. She's scratching at my arm. She's about to kill me. She's so early, always early. Okay, we have all 3 signatures ready to go. And once you put them in your book, that's what it's going to look like. Okay. So the next thing is we're going to make the holes for your signature, for stitching your signature. And this is a very basic, easy stitch. I just used 2 holes. The outside is straight here because I tied them in the middle instead of on the outside. And so what I want to do first is just go through my books. I need a pencil. Oops, that one's backwards. And I'm not going to measure how long the book is, but I'm going to gauge that I want them about 1.5 inches in on each end. So that's 1.5 inches there, and then this one here, about 1.5 right here. Okay, so that one's marked and ready to go. So I'm just going to mark the other 2 signatures 1.5 inches from each end. Okay, so I've marked my signatures about 1.5 inches from each end. Next thing I'm going to do is stitch my signatures into my book. And what I'm using for this one, you can use anything that you want to use. If it'll fit through your pages and your fabric, you can use dental floss, you can use baker's twine if it'll fit, whatever will fit, but I'm choosing this time to use waxed linen, and it comes in a package like this. Okay, and the color I'm going to use is black. They have all different colors. I'm going to gauge about how much I need and hopefully pull out enough and not too much. But I know that my signatures are going to be, the holes are going to be 1.5 inches in, and so there's going to be a string width about this long on each one. And I know I want a tail to be able to tie it, so let's say the tail could be that long also. So this is probably enough for 1 signature, and we'll give ourselves a little slack. Okay, so after I determine about how much string I need for 1 signature, I just cut it 3 times that amount because I want to have 1 string going instead of cutting 3 times. And then I just have a needle. You can use an upholstery needle or any needle that has a big eye that your wax linen will fit through. And I keep my needle stored away in my makeup sponge so that it doesn't poke anything in the bag, so I know where it's at when I need it. That's a miracle, isn't it? Actually have something where I know where it's at. Okay, so first signature is going to go in the center of my book. And I want the first signature to be this one, because it's going to be the middle one. So let's start with the middle one first. Put it in your book, close your book, measure up to make sure your book is evenly closed at the end. Doesn't have to be perfect, just get an idea. Kind of line your pages up where you want them. Find the center, and the string being long is a little difficult sometimes, but just overlook it. Okay. So now you've got your hole marked 1.5 inches down here. I'm going to poke a hole through here, just get an idea where it's going to go, and see if I like it. And I like it, so I'm going to push it on through. I'm going to leave a little string at the end here to tie my knot. Now the other side, I've got to come through this way, and I don't know exactly where to start. So I could guess, but I'm just going to take my needle and push it through the hole here where I need it and see where it's going to go. Kind of put my nail there, and then just go back around and kind of pick that spot. And come up through the other side. Okay, then I lay it down on my mat here. Make sure that it's taut. And I'm going to trim this off so I have less to deal with and work with. It's going to tie a knot. Don't pull too tight, you don't want to tear your pages. And then tie another knot. And then trim off the excess. Just leave a little tail. Now there's a little overlap here inside your book. That's because you're going to add 2 more signatures, which will take up a little more slack, and you'll still have a little overlap, but that's okay. You can trim it down if you want to, but you should trim it before you put this on, or you can leave it like it is, and that's the way I'm going to do it. So my next signature is going to go in the front here. I'm just going to lay it down on top, and there's ways you can do this. There's book holders you can make or buy. I just don't do all that stuff. I'm just going to wing it, stick it there where I think I want it, line it up, find the center, open it again, and I'll put my needle through where I think it's going to go, and I want it kind of side by side the string on the back, so hopefully it'll line up close enough just to give it an even look. It doesn't have to be even, and it's not, but it's okay, it's close enough. And I'm going right through a piece of ribbon, which is okay, but it makes it a little more difficult. So if you're worried about that, keep that in mind when you're stitching your stuff on, that where your spine's going to go is the thickest part, and you want to be careful that your fabric's not too thick to go through. But you can get through easily enough, really, I think. Okay, there we got that one. I see the strings at the back. I don't know if you can see them in this dark with the black. Put your book down again. Get tight. And I'm leaving them like this in the inside of the book. I don't care. If you care, you want to do it on the outside, or you want to put your pages together first and then put them in your book with ribbon going through and tied on the outside, you can do that. Anything you want to do is fine. It's your book. Whatever you want to do. Now the last signature, that one goes in the back. What I love about this project is the frayed edges, the loose strings, the uneven pages, the lack of stress in making something like this. I've made enough projects in my life that had to be just right. I've made clothes that had to be just right. This is freeing to me, and that's what I like about it. Okay, we've got all of our signatures in our book now. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my little pocket in the front and little pocket in the back, so we can put our little tag here and a little ATC or index card or whatever will fit here. And I am using the Ada cloth. I'm going to take this, and it happens to be the width I want, which is good. I don't have to do any measuring this way. And I just want to make sure that it's as deep as I want, so that's fine there. So I'm just going to cut a piece off the bottom, for the bottom. Okay, and then back here I need a piece lengthwise. So we're going to cut about right here, and then I want to cut it in half. So I'll just fold it in half and cut. My mother would be measuring. She was good at what she did, and she liked to be precise. I not so much. I balanced her out a little with a little bit of, hey mom, let's have fun at this. Okay, I've got my Helmar 450 quick dry adhesive that I'm going to use to glue the edges with. Just a little stream on the edge. And then I'm going to take some clips and just clip it on so it can dry. I'm going to add the clips around, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue down the other pocket while we're in fast forward and get that clip down so it can be drying and we can move on to the next step. Okay, the front's glued on and we've clipped it a little bit. Now, one thing I should have done and didn't do, but I've done it both ways. In this book I remembered, in this book I didn't. I like to put something on here as a decorative element, and on one book I put it on after it was glued in this book, and on one book I glued it on before. And it's best before, that way your glue doesn't seep through these little holes here, the cross stitch holes, and go to your book. That's why I have these, so that I can stick them in here and glue on what I want to glue on. Okay? That's how come I cut these, because I made that mistake. And then I forgot and did it again. So, but it's best that way because now you see how I'm doing it. See how to correct a mistake. So on the front piece here, let's see, what do I want? I'm not thinking about that. I definitely want a butterfly. Maybe this big butterfly is enough. And on the back, maybe this tag with some twine or some fiber sticking up. I think that's what we'll do, because I did that on one and I like it. You can see the fiber sticking up here. So we'll do that. And we'll pick the one that looks, I like this one. So let's cut off the length you think you need. You know, I'm just using up stuff. Here's more stickers I'm using up. I've got 2 left. And these are going in my paper bag projects, right and left. So, and it's sticky on the back, but it's going to be glued down, so it's okay if you get fibers and stuff glued on the back. Doesn't matter. Okay, we've got the ribbon through. I'm going to put some glue on the back and glue this down. So first glue this down here. And then I'm going to take these fibers and I'm going to glue those down in sporadic places. I want some of them to stick up, so I won't glue them everywhere. Alright, we're going to let that dry. And we may need to add a little bit more glue, but we're going to let it dry for now. And on the front, I'm going to put this butterfly. Glue, 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 glue. Normally I would angle it, but I think on this particular one, I'm just going to put it down straight. And let it sit there for a minute. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit for a minute and I'll come back in a second. Okay, while we're waiting on those pockets to dry, I went through my flower box and pulled out some petals that I cut with my die cut machine using a, I think Tim Holtz die, I'm not sure, but I just pulled out a bunch of the petals and I just layered them on top of each other. And where's my needle? I'm going to need my needle again. And then I found a brad that I liked, that I can hopefully get through all these layers. Okay, so I've just layered a bunch of the petals, got a little round piece going in the center here. I think this doubled though. I think we want to take out one. I got enough layers going on, I don't want extra. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to poke a hole in the center and try to get a hole started that my brad can go through. There's other ways of doing this, I'm sure, but I'm just going to choose to do it this way. You can do it however you want. And got a hole started, so let's see if I can get the brad through. Very easy, and right, first time. Okay, and I'm off centered. You can see I'm off centered, but that's okay because then my pink's going to show over here a little bit and not over here. I'm okay with that. Truly, truly. There's my little flower. Let's take this apart. Let's hope that all of it's dry enough, and I think that I don't want to do any more gluing on my ribbon here. I think. We'll see in a second. No, that can stay like that. Okay, I'm gonna leave that in there temporarily and take these off. I'm gonna leave that in there temporarily. But I want to work on the outside. Just scrunching it up, getting it all wrinkly. And I had a piece of trim in my scrap box that I didn't use. This is just that Hug Snug ribbon you've seen me use that I dyed a orangey color. And I'm going to use that as a bow on here somewhere. So I think I'll put my flower right there. Let's make a bow. It's a grungy bow. It's okay too. I'm not sure I like this here. I might like it better without that. I think I may take it off. So hang on. Okay, I took it off. I like it better. And I want that pink on top of the black. So we're going to go that way. See what it looks like up there. We'll go up there. I'll cover this because I know I've got this on the back. It is so hard to think when you have to sneeze and you're trying not to sneeze and you're talking. Okay, so that's where the flower is going to go. So let's glue that down. Bailey is already starting in on something. I think she wants lunch, and breakfast was just barely over for her. I didn't tell you guys when I was telling you in the last video about her being stubborn on the walk and not wanting to walk with me, what she did to me. I forgot to put that part in. We were walking along and I was having to stop and stop and stop and kind of gently prod her along. And we got started again, and all of a sudden the leash was tied again, so I turned around and looked at her, and she had put her butt in the air, her arms, her front paws down on the ground, and her butt in the air, and she dug her elbows in, and she was not moving. She was staring at me. That's how stubborn she was being that day. Pain in the rear, pain in the hiney, I tell you. All right, I turned it a little bit because I'm thinking I like it better that way. Okay, and then I'll cover it a little bit. That's all right. And then I want a bow. Do I want it in here? I think I do. I want one in the flower, and then I have enough left for a little one. I might put it somewhere else. We could put a big one somewhere, like right here. Let's make a little bow and see before we commit. All right, a cute little rugged bow. Do I want it up here? Or do I want the big bow up there? And the little bow down here? I'm kind of really liking that big bow up there. I think I'll put the big bow up there. I don't know why, I just like it, so that's what we're going to do. Stick it right in the center there. Okay, now you dry while I decide about this bow. We'll put it on the back. But let's wrap this around and see where it's going to go first. Probably put it up there on the back. All right, so next thing I want to do, while this is drying on the front, we're going to take our little embellishment here. It's a little lock, and I'm going to decide how many wraps I want around here, and we're going to add that on to do the little tuck like I showed you on the other one. That's twice, and I think we'll just go twice. So then I'm going to slide the ribbon onto the lock. And slide it down here. Kind of get an idea where this is going to fall. And I'm going to cut the ribbon right here. I'm just kind of getting an idea so I know where to tie my ribbon. Okay, so then I'm going to put my lock on here, and I'm going to bring my ribbon up. Let's undo this. I'm going to bring my ribbon up and on top of each other like this, and I'm just going to tie a knot. It takes a second to get the knot because the lock is a little bigger than the other things I used, but it'll work. I've got my knot tied. Okay, so then I've got some loose ribbon here, which is fine. And then you just have to wrap your book and tuck your embellishment. And like I said, if you get your book to where it's too thick, you just cut your ribbon somewhere. Here, I'll let you look at it first. If your book gets too big and your lock winds up on the back, that's fine. It looks cute back there. If you say you're wrapping and your book's too big and you wind up having to do this back here, that's fine too. But if you don't want it in the back and you want it in the front, just take your ribbon, find a good spot, maybe in the middle or someplace wherever you think it's going to wind, maybe wrap it on your book and decide where it's going to land that you like it. Just cut your ribbon and tie something in the middle. Tie more of the same, tie something different. It doesn't matter. Look how raggy this is. It's not going to matter if you cut this and add something onto it. So that's perfectly fine. All right, so let's take this out. I think we've let it glue long enough. And let's take this out. And we'll tie or glue our little bow back here. Get that done. I'm going to hold this for a second and I'll come back and we'll show you the finished book. Got my little bow on the back glued. It's still drying, so we have to be careful. But I want to show you how this is going to look. Let's open this up and put our little tag in. Okay, and let's put this in the back. Okay, so you've got a little tuck spot back here. You've got your tuck spot up here. Got all your papers, and what I'm going to do with one of mine, I think I'm going to make it a word book, and I'm just going to put words in there that I like. I'm going to think of words and write them, or I'm going to type them and print them out, or I'm going to stamp them or something, and then I'm going to put them in my book. So we've got our tuck spots in, and we've got our pages in, and you could come back and add a ribbon in here if you wanted to, like for example, put a ribbon in here and bring it around outside and then tie it out here. You could do that, but I'm not going to. And you could even come in and bring something through here. Well, I'm not going to take time to do it, but you could slide something through here and hang it. I may do that later. So let's wrap our book and we'll show you what it looks like finished. Okay, there's our finished book. I think it's super cute, it's super fun, it's super easy, and it is no stress, no stress. I've made 3. I made 2 yesterday, and you can make them fast if you're going at a clip and you're doing an assembly line. I was just de-stressing yesterday, so it took me a little while to make them because I was just finagling with them and everything, but I think you can make these rather quickly if you really wanted to. So there we go. All right, guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great weekend or whenever you see this video, and I will see y'all later, okay? So thanks for watching. Bye-bye.